Yo, what up, world? 502 King Power coming to y'all with another video, man. So in this video, I just wanted to discuss the first day that I stopped smoking weed. And I wanted to focus in on the first day that I stopped smoking weed because that by far was the hardest day for me to get through. And I want to say going into that day, my very first day that I decided I was going to stop, the willpower at the beginning of the day, the willpower at the beginning of that first morning was tremendous because I woke up and I had this goal on my mind. All the reasons, my whys, why I wanted to stop, why I needed to stop. Just thinking about all of the different things that had weighed me down, all of the negative consequences that came with smoking weed. All of these things were very fresh on my mind at the beginning of the day. But then as your day starts to go on, the first few hours that you've went without smoking weed, you feel a bit accomplished, but then you start to have that feeling of anxiety. You start to have that feeling of depression that comes over. You start having that feeling of emptiness that comes across your mind when you're so used to doing something, man. Like, the way I can compare this to the feeling that you have is like coming out of a bad relationship. A relationship that you knew was not good for you, but it's hard for you to let go. It's hard for you to get used to going through life, going through your day without that relationship, without that other person being there in your life. It's the same way when you're smoking weed, man. It's the same exact way. You start to have to come up with a new routine. Those time slots where you would normally smoke weed, you would normally relax, you would normally do whatever activities that you do after smoking weed. You now have to find ways to fill that up. And it's very hard that first day for you to get through that. And on your mind, at the forefront of your mind, all day you're concentrating on something. So I don't know if some of y'all may have heard this term before about the pink elephant. And basically, this is just an example that's used a lot in psychology where if you try not to focus on something, then you're going to focus on it. If you try not to think of a pink elephant, you're going to think about a pink elephant. If you try not to think about weed, then you're going to think about weed. So that's why a lot of times in my videos, man, I emphasize the importance of finding other things to do that's going to take up that time period. If you have to work out, if you have to read, if you need to pray, if you need to get outside, go for a walk. I had to do a lot of these things myself in order to get through that first day. And as time goes on throughout the day, and I know it seems like it's just 24 hours. When you're outside of it or you're not addicted to weed, it seems like such a short amount of time. But for someone who does it on a daily basis, somebody like myself who smoked multiple times throughout the day, every few hours throughout the day, when you're so used to doing this, man, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, every hour seems like forever because you're weaning yourself off of this. And as you go on throughout the day, your confidence starts to go up a little bit more. Your anxiety goes up a lot more too. Your depression, all of these negative feelings, thoughts, and emotions that come across you, man, it's so natural for you to go through that. When you're pulling yourself away from something that you're used to, it's very natural for you to have these different feelings. But you also have this feeling of accomplishment. And like I said, if you go all throughout the day, just 2 hours, you're like, yeah, I made it past my first time that I would normally smoke throughout the day. When you make it to noon, you're like, okay, I done went half the day and I haven't smoked yet. I'm doing good. You still have that anxiety. You still have that depression. You still have all these feelings, but you also are starting to gain confidence little by little as the day goes on. And I'm just speaking from my personal experience. This is what I felt when I was going through this situation myself. And then it got to 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the evening. I'm like, man, you've almost made it. You almost there. You're almost there. All you got to do is just push through these next few hours. But I can say something that's very hard about that first day when you don't smoke weed, especially if you're used to blazing up before you go to sleep, man, is you're regretting getting to that bed at night and having to figure out how to go to sleep sober. And that is something that's very hard. A lot of people break at that nighttime point because they can't figure out how to get themselves to go to sleep, which once again, that's why you want to fill up your day with as much stuff as you can, as much positive stuff as you can. Whatever it is that you need to do, make sure that you're filling up your schedule. Don't decide to stop smoking weed on a day where you plan on doing nothing but laying around all day, because I guarantee you, you will not make it to the end of the day. When you have absolutely nothing to do on your schedule, when you have the whole day to just sit around and do nothing, you're going to revert back to smoking weed. And I'm going to throw this in as well. And I don't suggest this for everyone, but something that I did personally for the first month that I stopped smoking, I kept a little bit of weed inside the house. And I did this for psychological reasons, because everybody knows, every smoker knows that when you're used to smoking, man, and then you run out of weed, it's kind of like you have this high anxiety. Your anxiety immediately snaps into place. And for me personally, just knowing that I had the weed there, that if I wanted to smoke it, that I could smoke it, it helped me out. I never went and smoked that weed. I ended up flushing it down the road. But the key thing for me was to not have that feeling of anxiety coming over me, knowing that I could not access it, or that I would have to go and, go over someone's house, or that I would have to go and pick up some weed if I wanted to smoke some weed. Having that inside of there was, again, it was more of a comforting thing for me. Now, for everyone, this may not be the best thing for you to do. You know yourself better than I know you, so you know what's best for you. Some people, I suggest that you just flush all your weed that you have, or smoke the rest of it. If you plan on stopping smoking, smoke the rest of it. Get rid of it. Get rid of any kind of paraphernalia that you have related to weed. Any kind of Rellos, rolling papers, your bongs. If you don't smoke anything else, your lighter. And that's another thing for me, man. And I had to realize that I couldn't quit everything at once. I also smoked tobacco. And I didn't want to stop smoking tobacco at the same time that I stopped smoking weed, because I knew that this would be like overkill for me. Again, it all goes into recognizing who you are as a person, knowing who you are as a person, what you can tolerate, what you can't tolerate. Some people can just stop everything cold turkey at once. For me personally, I chose to hold on to my tobacco habit and give myself time to get away from that weed habit, and then go and work on that tobacco habit. So this is something that I suggest for a lot of people, man. If you have multiple vices that you're trying to get rid of, maybe focus in on one vice at a time. If you have a drinking problem and a smoking problem, focus in on the drinking or the smoking, and not try to do it all at once, because sometimes you'll just send your body into shock. And psychologically, it could be too much for you, man. Now, once you get through that first day, and it's very, very hard to fall asleep. I don't think the crazy dreams started coming until maybe about a few days or a weekend. I can't remember at this point, but it wasn't instantaneous. It wasn't that first night for me personally. Some people may have had dreams that first night they stopped smoking. For me personally, it took a couple days for those very vivid, crazy dreams to come to me. But the next day, after I finally, found a way to fall asleep, I finally get to sleep and I wake up. I kind of felt like a good way to put this, man, it's kind of like working out or hitting the gym. You go to the gym, you work out really hard. The next day you wake up, your body's sore because you're not used to working out those different muscle groups. And you're happy that you made it through the first day. But you're like, man, now I got to go through this all over again. So again, man, that first day is the hardest, but you start to build up that repetition. You realize, okay, if I make it through one day, I can make it through 2 days. If I can make it through 2, I can make it through 4, I can make it through 8. And you just, next thing you know, you look up, it's been a week. Then it's been 2 weeks. Then it's been a month. And by the time you get to that place, man, depending on what it is that you're doing outside of, depending on what it is that you're doing outside of just not smoking weed, if you started to build up great habits during that time, if you started to see different gains in other areas of your life, it'll be much more easier for you to continue down that road, to continue. When you see benefits from what it is that you're doing, again, back to like working out. When you go to that gym and you work out 1 day, 2 days, you don't really see any real difference gains. But when you start going week after week and you start seeing the change that happens in your life, it encourages you to keep going, to keep moving, to keep going. And I know some people, man, if you're like me, you had to start over day one over and over and over. You tell yourself, okay, today is going to be my first day. Stop smoking. and you make it up to a certain point, something happens, somebody pisses you off, something just really ramps up your anxiety during the day, something stressful comes your way, and next thing you know, you're back smoking. Man, if you are one of these people, you're not alone. I went through this same thing myself. Millions of other people have went through this same thing as well. I guarantee it, man. To where you get on this road and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then you fall off. But it's okay, man. Do not beat yourself up. Something that I learned, and this is from actually talking to my therapist, which I wasn't talking to her about addictions, but she had this conversation with me because she also did substance abuse counseling as well. And one thing that she said that she would tell people who had problems with substance abuse is, you know, if you mess up, then don't just beat yourself up. Don't stay down about it. Make sure that you just start over fresh again the next day. Start over fresh again the next day. Whatever it is you got to do, man, but put your mind to it. Put your mind to it that you can do it. I guarantee it. That first day is going to be rough. That first day is going to be hard. But if you can make it through that one day, I guarantee you can make it through a week. You can make it through a month. You can make it through a year. Just do it step by step, day by day, hour by hour. Man, it's truly a prison that you build for yourself when you're caught up in this addiction. And I'm not putting down anybody who's still on their road to recovery, anyone who hasn't stopped smoking weed yet. But I do want to emphasize, man, that you have to take this hour by hour. It's truly like being inside of a prison. It's like you've built this fortress around yourself. You built this lifestyle that has you trapped in, and now you're trying to get out of it. But you have to go through it hour by hour, day by day. It's not going to just change completely overnight, but I guarantee you, man, the fruits of your labor, and your labor being, you know, you doing that real work on yourself by you not smoking, it's going to be so worth it, man. I've seen a complete change in my life, a complete change in my mindset, a complete change in my discipline, my ambition, just by me stopping smoking weed, man. And I just want to put out this video as encouragement. Hopefully, I said something inside this video that really helps out some people, man. If you like anything about the video, anything at all, take a moment, go down below, like the video. Also, make sure that you share the video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So as soon as I drop these videos, man, y'all get them to your phone, your computer, your TV, whatever it is you're watching, man, whatever you're watching YouTube on. I want you to get these videos as soon as I drop them, man. Sometimes we have to put ourselves in the right environment, the right situation. You have to be around the right people. You have to have the right content right there at your fingertips. You never know what it is that you could be missing, man. It's 502 King Power. I love y'all. I pray that this video was a blessing to y'all. I'm out.